Welcome to Buddha Sangha. The practice of jhanas takes you so deep into the mind. It can be said that it is like diving into the ocean. And you keep diving till the time you can maintain absolute non-reaction, equanimity, quietness. You keep diving. The moment there is a thought, you react to something, you react to an emotion, you become breathless and you come up to the surface again. Again, when that thought and that sensation or the emotion, everything with it subsides, again you start diving, becoming quieter and quieter and quieter. The quieter you can stay, the deeper your experience becomes. From physical happiness to mental happiness. And then the tranquility starts, and that tranquility ends in equanimity. And that equanimity goes into absolute void. But it doesn't matter at what stage you are, whether physical happiness or mental happiness or tranquility or equanimity, at any stage you give importance to a thought and you jump into a reactive mode, you come up to the surface, you become breathless. Again, you have to calm down, relax, come back into a collected mind, and again start diving. The practice of jhanas sometimes can seem challenging when you have not been regularly keeping the mind calm either through knowledge or through meditation. So in those times, it is a good idea to go back to the practice of observing the sensations. Just observing. Observe the physical sensations and then observe the mental contents. Just be aware that there is this happening. Don't react. This itself helps calm the mind down. When you become very calm, balanced, centered after the practice of Satipatthana. When your awareness becomes sharper, when that sati is sharpened, now with that sati, you start the jhana practice and dive. Then the jhana practice is easier. Diving deep inside becomes easier. Keep experimenting with your mind, because everybody's situation in life is not the same. Yeah, even if two individuals are going through the same problem, let's take an example, your H1 problem. Both individuals are going through the same H1 problem. Still, this individual will have his own set of emotions, his own set of thoughts, and this individual will have his own set of emotions, his own set of thoughts. This first individual will have his own way to attain equanimity. This individual will have his own way to attain equanimity. So no two individuals can really compare their practice also. Do you get it? So don't compare your practice with another person. You look at yourself. If you're very restless, first calm the mind down by just observing natural breath. When the mind becomes very calm with natural breath, but you still see that emotions are coming up, then observe the sensations. Go into Satipatthana after Anapana. And then by observing and not reacting only, will you see that these emotions will calm down. And when you attain that calmness, it will become easier to dive into the jhana practice and enter the void. The void has its prerequisites. No? An agitated, restless mind cannot find his way into the void. He will again and again become breathless because of the thoughts and emotions and gasp and come back up to the surface. So keep practicing. Doesn't matter if you fell out of the practice for some time, go back to it again. Start with Anapana, move on to Satipatthana, and then dive into the jhanas. Slowly and surely, you will get the entire practice. This is the complete practice. Yeah. Only when you touch that void again and again and again and again and again and again does the impression of the void become stronger in you. If you don't practice only being in the void, how will that impression become stronger? You see what I'm saying? So it's okay, past is past. We could not practice, that's fine. Now let's begin. Yeah? You will realize that there is a different kind of happiness that can be experientially understood, not just intellectually, but experientially understood when you get established in the void. So today's sutta is about happiness. Yeah. We are going to do it from Anguttara Nikaya, the book of the twos, and section 7 is on happiness, which has sutta number 64 to 76. We are going to do all the suttas because they are just two-liners. Happiness. Sutta number 64. Bhikkhus, there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness of a lay person and the happiness of one who has gone forth into homelessness. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness of one who has gone forth is foremost. Which is the foremost or the best or the highest happiness? Going into homelessness. That does not mean that you go start walking on the street and live on the streets. That's not homelessness. It is a translation of basically renunciation, which comes again in the second paragraph. Yeah. It is a translation of dropping all attachments to everything material, including family members. Yeah. It does not mean that you drop the family members. It means you drop the attachment, that clingy thing that you have for family members. Why is homelessness given importance? In the time of the Buddha, India was a very rich country. People had everything, a lot of money, lot of riches, lots of luxuries, but all they lacked was the peace of mind. That is why Buddha said, now drop all this, drop everything. The only thing that you need to surrender is your own I. That I or the ego has become very pompous with everything that you have right now. This I needs to be dropped. And how do you drop the I? By cutting off everything, every attachment that this I has. So all the rich people wore robes, became bhikkhus, and dropped all their attachment to the kingdoms, to their families, to everything, and surrendered their ego and dived into the knowledge. Now, I am not telling you that you have to do the same, but it is for those people who became bhikkhus. And he says that that happiness is the highest. You yourself check. You don't have to go into homelessness, but the happiness that you get out of attachment for one thing. For example, the happiness that you used to get from Facebook and the likes on Facebook and the comments on Facebook and putting up pictures, and there was this pleasure that you got. And then one day you decided that this is really not right. I am continuously spending a lot of time on Facebook doing nothing but just surfing through people's profiles and their posts. And I'm wasting a lot of time. I'm not productive. You decide to drop out of Facebook. You cancel your account, you delete your account, and now you are free of Facebook. There was another kind of joy being free of that addiction that I was hooked into, right? Some of us have experienced this. Yeah, maybe it was Facebook or maybe it was another object. So that happiness of becoming free of some attachment is the foremost. Sutta number 65 is exactly identical because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? Sensual happiness and the happiness of renunciation. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness of renunciation is foremost. You check in your own life after coming onto the spiritual path, there must be some sensual pleasures that must have automatically dropped away. You didn't even make an effort, or you did not reject something, it just dropped away. Yeah? Some people used to party a lot and are not attracted to that culture anymore now. Naturally, a natural maturity has happened, and you're very content in this natural maturity. So, this renunciation is foremost. The happiness of this renunciation is foremost. Sutta number 66. Bhikkhus, there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness bound up with acquisitions and the happiness without acquisitions. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness without acquisitions is foremost. You remember that time in life when you kept running behind achieving something, attaining something, you were so feverish, you wanted it, come what may. You kept up late nights, you woke up early in the morning, you worked very hard to get that. There was a happiness in getting that, but the happiness now in not craving for something, recognizing that it is futile anyways. I'm not the doer. Things happen. They have always been happening. Unnecessarily, I was thinking that I am making them happen by my feverishness. The running in the mind was much, much more than the actual running behind the object. The feverishness in the mind was a ceaseless marathon, whether it was daytime or in dreams in the night. The mind was ceaselessly running. That has dropped off. Craving has dropped off now. And now, not running behind these acquisitions seems just the natural thing to do. This happiness without acquisitions is foremost. Sutta number 67. Bhikkhus, there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness with taints and the happiness without taints. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness without taints is foremost. What is the meaning of taints? When I have a lot of impurity within me, I have negativity, I have jealousy, I am competitive, I am too passionate, all these aggressive qualities that lean me towards negativity are there. There's a lot of taints, and I experience some happiness through some material world acquisition. There is a happiness in that, but that happiness is very feeble. It is powerless compared to the powerful happiness of purity. When you're very pure inside, then all these little happinesses about things and people and situations seems very petty, very small. There is another happiness of that inner purity. It is a natural power that you feel and experience and dwell in, that which can never be taken away from you. The power of a taintless inner environment. So, some of us have experienced this earlier in life when we were drowned in an ocean of taints. Our happiness was very temporary. But now, when we have learned to keep away from taints, we have learned to keep our nose above the water, we breathe fresh air. We are not drowning in the stains. So now, when we breathe fresh air, this happiness is completely different. So, the happiness without taints is foremost. Sutta number 68. Because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? Worldly happiness and spiritual happiness. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, spiritual happiness is foremost. I don't need to explain this to you because you really relish this spiritual happiness. That is why you are here today. Because you have realized that this happiness is foremost, you have put aside all the worldly things that could have been done right now, and you are devoting your time to your own spiritual growth. So, spiritual happiness is foremost. Sutta number 69. Because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? Noble happiness and ignoble happiness. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, noble happiness is foremost. This we all know. When we are noble means when we have high moralistic values and refrain from negativity, we go into meditation easily. We maintain more happiness. Our mind is more wholesome. And when we are ignoble, we ourselves experience restlessness within us. We don't have a very happy mind. We are continuously in an ocean of guilt because of our own thoughts and intentions. Therefore, noble happiness is foremost. That means there is also an ignoble happiness. Yes, by doing wrong things also, the ego feels very happy for a moment, but it's a temporary or a short lasting happiness. The noble happiness is foremost. So if people have said something to you, have hurt you, have been mean to you, have been disrespectful to you, do not fall to their level. You maintain your nobility. You do not become ignoble. And just by refraining from becoming ignoble, you will experience noble happiness. Noble happiness is foremost. Sutta number 70. Because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? Bodily happiness and mental happiness. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, mental happiness is foremost. Mental happiness is always foremost compared to bodily happiness. Bodily happiness is simply having a body where there is, less chances of discomfort or disease. So the body is in a happy state. Yeah? But if the body is all normal and the mind is unhappy and restless and guilty, then obviously it doesn't matter however happy the body is, the mind is not happy. Then you are not in the foremost happy state possible. The mental happiness is above the physical happiness. Sutta number 71. Because there are those two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness accompanied by rapture and the happiness without rapture. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness without rapture is foremost. Those who have practiced the jhanas understand that the happiness of jhana 2 is higher than the happiness of jhana 1. In jhana 1, you feel so good, there is this rapture all over the body, there's this excitement, you feel happy. But after some time, when this rapture settles down and it becomes just a pleasant sukha, that feels even better, that is even more pleasing. That is a foremost happiness. Sutta number 72. Because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? Pleasurable happiness and the happiness of equanimity. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness of equanimity is foremost. So here, pleasurable happiness is the happiness of jhana 3 that you experience as tranquility. Yeah? But better than that is jhana 4, where it's absolutely void. No pain, no pleasure. It is a state beyond experiencing these sensations of pain and pleasure. Yeah? That is equanimity. A graph that is absolutely in the center, balanced. It does not move up or down at all. That is equanimity. So that equanimity is obviously higher than tranquility. Yeah? So to give an example, tranquility is more like, suppose the music is on, very loud blaring music is on, and you just go and you put it off and you feel that is tranquilization of the bodily and mental formations. A tranquility starts happening, a calmness starts happening. That is jhana 3, where everything becomes quiet, like a melting feeling, absolute tranquil. And then this melting feeling finally stops, and there is just a straight plateau of nothing. That is equanimity, jhana 4. So naturally, jhana 4 is higher than jhana 3. The happiness of equanimity is foremost. Sutta number 73. Because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness of concentration and the happiness without concentration. Here we will substitute the word concentration with the word collectedness, because concentration implies you're making a lot of effort. Yeah, whereas collectedness naturally happens on account of withdrawing from nonsense indulgence in talk, self talk. When you withdraw from that nonsense indulgence in self talk and just become aware of what is, a calmness ensues, a quietness happens, a relaxation, natural relaxation happens. And that relaxation is the collectedness of the mind rather than the word concentration, which implies making a lot of effort. You see, these lines that come together on the forehead, that seems like concentration. That is why I suggest we read concentration as collectedness, which happens very naturally in the jhanas. So, there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness of collectedness and the happiness without collectedness. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness of collectedness is foremost. Yeah. Whatever happiness you have with thoughts going on and lot of self-talk going on, there is still not that pure experiencing of the happiness. When the self-talk and all that turmoil inside the mind just settles and drops away and you are centered, balanced, equanimous, mind is collected, this happiness is different. It has a total deliciousness about it, which lacks in that inner self-talk. Correct? So, happiness of collectedness is foremost. Sutta number 74. Because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness based on the presence of rapture and the happiness based on the absence of rapture. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness based on the absence of rapture is foremost. Yeah, absence of rapture is foremost. Otherwise, you feel so happy. Jhana one, I'm experiencing all this tingling, this beautiful feeling all over the body, this happiness, this excitement all over the body, and you feel so happy about it. But the happiness that is without the rapture, the higher kind of happiness where there is a settling of all bodily sensations, and just at the mind level, there is this soothing calmness. Yeah, that is higher than the happiness of rapture. So, the happiness without rapture is foremost. Sutta number 75. Because there are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness based on pleasure and the happiness based on equanimity. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness based on equanimity is foremost. Again, jhana 3 and jhana 4. Yeah? When that equanimity, that plateau happens, there is a void. This void is experienced because there are no thoughts, there are no emotions, there's no sensation. The moment there is an emotion or sensation, your graph will either go up or down depending on what that emotion or sensation is. In equanimity, there is no emotion, no sensation, absolute void, silence. The quality of this silence is experienced in the gap between two thoughts. It is experienced in the gap between the in breath and the out breath. It is experienced in the gap. It is the shunyata or the zero mind. The moment you become adept at jhana 4 with eyes closed, you will be able to experience jhana 4 with eyes open. You will be able to maintain yourself in that state of equanimity that exists between two thoughts in the gap. You will experience the silence, the pin drop silence here. There will be no tape recorder going on again and again and again. That equanimity is the foremost. It's the equanimity of jhana 4. You can get established in that. There is nothing more delicious than the taste of the nectar of silence. So make that effort to withdraw from this world of people, situations, and things and just go within. Just go within. Again and again, withdraw and just go within. Establish that connection with yourself. I already gave you the tips. If you are very agitated, start with Anapana. That sharpens the sati or the awareness. Then just become aware of all the sensations at the physical level and the sensations at the mental level or emotions at the mental level. From Anapana, you have moved on to Satipatthana. This will settle down this up and down graph. When you experience this up and down becoming less and less and less, you will see, oh, I can go into equanimity easily now. Now you jump into jhanas. Immediately, just by smiling in Satipatthana, just smiling at that happiness of equanimity being there, automatically you'll start experiencing jhana 1. The piti, the rapture, automatically the piti settles down and becomes a subtle calmness, a subtle happiness of Sukha in jhana 2. That also starts fading away and tranquilizing, and you attain tranquility of jhana 3. And finally, that seeps into an even more quieter mind of equanimity in jhana 4. Moment you're in jhana 4, you are there. Yes. Then you can just expand in that silence, in that void. Come to the one who is just observing all this and then dissolve even into that nothingness within. Start being with the nectar of the silence more and more and start strengthening that experience. The happiness based on equanimity is foremost. Sutta number 76, Bhikkhus. There are these two kinds of happiness. What two? The happiness based on form and the happiness based on the formless. These are the two kinds of happiness. Of these two kinds of happiness, the happiness based on the formless is foremost. First four jhanas are the rupa jhanas of the form. When you go higher than the form, you move from 4 into 5 just by expanding in that void and just being, expanding infinitely in that void. in that nothingness, in that equanimity, in that silence, just expanding. You are in jhana 5. After the expansion is fulfilled, you'll find a point where there is no more expansion, and just become aware of the one who has recognized that now there is no more expansion. Be there, be there. You're in jhana 6. You have entered into formlessness with 5 and 6. And now dissolve into jhana 6. Dissolve, dissolve. It doesn't matter whether you experience anything there or not. You don't always see some light and sound show. It doesn't happen all the time. Just dissolve, dissolve, dissolve into that nothingness. Just like a little sugar grain will dissolve into the water. You just drop yourself completely, drop yourself into that silence. Become one with that silence. Drop, drop, drop into that formlessness. When you dive deeper into the formlessness, everything disappears. Even the analysis of is this jhana 6 or jhana 7 or jhana 8 slowly disappears. So you move from nothingness slowly into non-analysis. Still, it is not that it is completely asanya, nor it is sanya. And then there is complete cessation, complete and absolute nothingness. This experience of the formlessness, this happiness of the formless, is the foremost, is the highest. When the cessation of vijnana, sanya, and vedana, all three occur, you taste the nectar of shunyata. This is the highest kind of happiness. May you all attain shunyata in this very lifetime. Apo Deepo Bhava. Be your own light.